I never thought I'd be sitting here, writing this out, but honestly, I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. My name's Dave, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 10 years now. We have a son, Jake, who's just turned 12, and he's been into baseball for a couple of years. It's supposed to be a happy story, or at least it was, until I found out my wife has been cheating on me with Jake's baseball coach. At first, everything seemed normal. Lisa was always busy, working long hours, but I figured that was just her job. She's a competitive woman, always pushing herself, and she's got that bitchy attitude. She's quick to lie, quick to dismiss any doubts I had, and she definitely has a way of making everything seem like it's my fault. She's the type of woman who acts like she's got it all figured out, and everyone else is just along for the ride. But lately, I noticed her acting weird around certain times, late nights, short answers, and a lot of defensive attitude when I'd ask about where she was. She'd brush it off, say she was working late or with friends. Still, I kept an eye on her as much as I hated to admit it. Then something strange happened. I was on my computer one night just browsing through some emails when I noticed an anonymous message pop up in my inbox. It was a link to a security footage clip. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank. I almost ignored it, but then I clicked. That's when I saw it. The footage was from a hotel lobby during one of Jake's weekend tournaments. The timestamp was clear. My wife, Lisa, and Coach Ryan, the coach himself, were together in the hotel room. The footage showed them walking in, then into the room, and then, for a few minutes, I saw them together, laughing, then more than that. They were kissing. I couldn't see everything, but enough was clear to make my stomach turn. They looked like they were having sex, their bodies pressed close, and the way she was responding, sarcastic, bitchy, always trying to act like she's above it all. She looked like she was hiding something, and I had proof now. I don't know how I felt at first. Shock, anger, betrayal, all of it hit me. Like a freight train. I kept watching that clip over and over, trying to convince myself it wasn't true, but the signs had been there. Her lies, her dismissiveness, the secretive phone calls. And now this, it was undeniable. She was cheating on me, and she'd been doing it for a while, it seemed, probably since the first tournament this season. I wanted to confront her right then. I was furious, stomach clenched tight, mind racing. But I knew better. I needed to get my head straight first. It wasn't just about catching her, it was about what came next. I sat there, staring at that screen, feeling like everything I'd built over the years was crumbling. I'd always known Lisa could be a bitch, someone who lied and manipulated, but this was a whole new level. She's been sneaking around, hiding her affair, and I was damn sure she'd lied about everything. Her schedule, her calls, her late nights. That's when I started planning. I had to figure out how to approach her. But I knew one thing for certain. This was the strike three for our marriage. I'd been blind for too long. It was time to face the truth and decide what I was really willing to accept. I didn't want to be the fool who stayed in a marriage built on lies, but I also wasn't sure how to do it without losing my mind first. That night, I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing everything had changed forever. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My stomach was still churning from everything I saw. I kept replaying that video in my head, trying to find some piece of logic or some reason she might have had for doing this. But deep down, I knew there was no justification. She lied, she cheated, and she'd been doing it for who knows how long. I could still see her face, bitchy, dismissive, like she didn't care about what she was doing or how much it hurt me. I had to act, but I didn't want to rush into anything. First, I decided to get more evidence. I started checking her phone, her email, her social media accounts. I needed to know if this was just a one-time thing or if there was more. I found texts, flirty, suggestive messages from Ryan, the coach. They'd been talking for months, I'm sure of it. The way she lied about her plans, the way she brushed me off when I asked about her whereabouts, it all fit into this puzzle. It was sickening, honestly. I'd always thought I was a good husband. I worked hard, paid for her expensive boutique clothes, drove her around, helped with Jake's homework, and never once doubted her loyalty. But now, I couldn't see her the same way. She was a different person, cold, manipulative, and completely capable of lying to my face while sneaking around with our son's coach. By midday, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't just leave it like that. I had to confront her. I didn't want some messy, shouting argument, but I knew I needed answers straight from her mouth. I waited until she was supposed to be working late, then called her at work. She answered with her usual snarky tone, pretending everything was fine. I told her I needed to talk, that it was important. When she came home that evening, she looked annoyed. She immediately tried to brush me off, acting like I was overreacting, like I was crazy for even suggesting anything was wrong. I kept my calm, though. I told her I knew about the affair, about Ryan, about everything I'd found. Her face twisted into a sneer and she snapped back, "You're crazy. You must be imagining things. I don't know what you're talking about." I didn't want to let her gaslight me. I pushed harder, showing her the evidence, screenshots of the texts, the fact that I had the video footage. Her eyes flickered, then she rolled her eyes and said, "So what if I cheated? It doesn't mean I don't love you, Dave. It's just sex, and honestly, you're too busy with work to notice I needed something more." Her words cut deep. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she be so damn callous? I told her I was done, that I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. She laughed, that bitchy laugh, and said, "You're overreacting. You're just jealous because Ryan is better at baseball than Jake and probably better in bed too." That's when I saw her for what she really was, someone who thought she could lie her way out of everything, who believed she was untouchable. But I wasn't going to let her win. I knew I had to do something more than just talk. I had to be strategic. I needed proof, and I needed to decide what I was going to do about us. The entire night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I kept thinking about what I'd do if I left her, if I stayed, if I fought for the marriage or just walked away. I felt betrayed, confused, and honestly kind of numb. She was so good at twisting everything, making me out to be the bad guy, when all I wanted was to be treated with respect. It was clear now that this wasn't just a fling or a one-time mistake. It was something she'd been doing for months, and that meant I had to consider my options very carefully. I couldn't keep being the fool, and I knew I couldn't just forgive her and pretend it didn't happen. The betrayal was too deep, and I wasn't sure I'd ever trust her again. But figuring out what to do was the hard part, and I knew the real storm was just beginning. The days that followed were a blur of planning and trying to keep my composure. Every time I looked at Lisa, I saw that smirk, the way she thought she could just manipulate the situation, act like everything was fine. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had the evidence, and now I was starting to plot my next move. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without being prepared. I had to be smart. So I started gathering everything I could, more texts, emails, even conversation snippets I overheard from others who might have seen or heard something. I didn't want to be the guy who just flipped out without a plan. No, this had to be precise and calculated. One night I decided to set a trap. I knew she'd be working late again, probably with Ryan. I called a friend I trusted, a guy who knew about the situation, and asked him to come by. I told Lisa I was going to handle some work stuff late, but I was planning to surprise her with a little date night idea for Saturday. She scoffed, said she didn't want to do anything. Typical. But I knew she was lying. I could see the telltale signs, her nervousness when she checked her phone, the way she kept fidgeting. The plan was simple. I'd set up a hidden camera near the living room, point it at the front door, and see if she slipped up. I wanted proof of her plans, proof that she was sneaking around again. The camera was discreet enough, just a small device I bought online. I set it up that night, then pretended like nothing was different. I went to bed, but I was wide awake, waiting for her to come home or make her move. The hours dragged by, and I kept staring at the blinking light on the camera, my heart pounding. I didn't want to get my hopes up, but I knew this was the only way to be sure. Around midnight, I saw her car pull into the driveway. She was quick to get out and almost ran to the door. I watched her unlock it, then slip inside. My stomach clenched. I knew she was going to see Ryan again, or maybe someone else. Whatever it was, I had the proof now. I was ready to confront her face to face, but I also knew I had to be calm, no matter how much I wanted to explode. The next morning, I confronted her again. I told her I had evidence, more than she could deny. Her face paled for a moment, then she got nasty. "You're crazy," she spat. You're just jealous because I don't want your sorry ass. I do what I want when I want. You think you're so perfect, but you're just an overworked, boring guy. Her words hit me like a punch. I felt the anger boiling over. How could she be so callous, so manipulative? I told her I was done playing her game. I told her I knew about her affair with Ryan, about the secret weekends, the lies. I told her I had enough, that I was filing for divorce and I wanted her out of my life. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk. Go ahead, do whatever you want. You're just a scared, insecure little man. You can't even keep your own family together. You're weak, Dave. That's why I cheated. Because you're never around, always working, never paying attention. Maybe Ryan was just more fun than you ever were. That was the final straw. I felt my blood boil. I'd been trying to keep my cool, trying to be the bigger man, but her words pushed me over the edge. I told her she was a selfish, manipulative bitch who thought she could walk all over me. I told her she was replaceable, and I was done feeling like a chump. After she stormed out that day, I sat alone in the house, feeling numb yet strangely relieved. I knew I was making the right move. I'd been a fool and she'd shown me her true face. I wasn't going to be played anymore. It was time to start over, even if it hurt like hell. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wasn't going to live under her thumb anymore. That betrayal was the last straw, and I was done pretending everything was okay. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. After she left that day, I stayed in the house, trying to breathe through the storm inside. I had the evidence, I had the truth, but what I didn't have was a clear plan. All I knew was I couldn't keep living in this lie, this betrayal. The house felt different, cold, empty, like her presence had been erased. Even her stuff, which used to be part of my everyday life, now just felt like clutter I wanted to get rid of. I decided to call a lawyer that afternoon. I didn't want to act impulsively, but I knew I had to protect myself and Jake. I asked about divorce, custody, and what my options were. The lawyer was sympathetic but realistic. She told me I had a strong case, proof of her affair, the pictures, the texts. She also warned me that Lisa would probably fight me on everything, especially about custody, considering her bitchy attitude and manipulative ways. But I was done. I didn't want her dragging me through a messy court battle, but I knew I had to be prepared. While I was on the phone, I couldn't help but think about Jake. My son's innocence in all of this, how he must feel not knowing what's happening behind his back. I didn't want to drag him into this mess, but I also couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I promised myself I'd be honest with him, in a way he could understand. I didn't want him to grow up thinking this kind of betrayal was normal. That night I sat in the living room, staring at the empty spot where Lisa used to sit. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and relief. The anger was for her lies, her betrayal, her manipulation. The sadness was for the fact that my marriage was over, that the woman I trusted had been lying to my face for months. The relief was knowing I was finally free from the chaos she brought into my life. Still, a huge part of me felt shattered. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it coming, how I missed the signs, how I let her get away with it. I wanted to get rid of everything that reminded me of her, her clothes, her jewelry, even her damn perfume. I knew I couldn't erase her from my mind completely, but I could control what I kept around. I threw out her stuff, one piece at a time. It felt like I was cleansing myself of the betrayal, trying to rebuild from the wreckage. In the middle of that night, I got a message on my phone. It was anonymous, a simple text saying, "You're not as kid-safe as you think. Ryan knows. You have the evidence, watch your back." I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding. Someone else knew about what I'd found, and clearly they wanted to warn me, or maybe intimidate me. I didn't know if I should be scared or angry. Either way, it confirmed one thing: this was bigger than just Lisa and me. It was a web of lies and secrets I hadn't even seen coming. That message made me realize I couldn't just walk away quietly. I had to be smarter, more cautious. Someone out there was watching, maybe even warning her about what I knew. I started thinking about my next steps, how to protect myself, how to make sure I had the upper hand. I wasn't naive enough to think this was over just because she'd left. No, this was just the beginning of a game I wasn't sure I wanted to play, but I had no choice. I was already in too deep. All I knew for sure was that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I was done being the fool, the guy who turned a blind eye. I'd find a way to move on, whether that was fighting for custody, exposing her lies, or just walking away entirely. But one thing was certain, I'd never trust her again. And I'd make sure she paid for what she did, whether that was through legal means or something more personal. I just hoped I'd be strong enough to see it through. The months that followed were a roller coaster I never signed up for. I went through all the typical stages: shock, anger, sadness, then that strange numbness that settles in when you realize everything you believed in was a lie. I kept revisiting that video, those texts, the secret nights she spent with Ryan, and I'd get furious all over again. But I also knew I had to keep my head clear if I wanted to come out of this in one piece. Divorce papers were filed, legally separating us, and custody arrangements were discussed. I pushed hard for full custody of Jake. Just thinking about Lisa trying to manipulate the court or spin some sob story made me sick. I had proof of her infidelity, her lies, her manipulative attitude, everything I needed to back up my case. But I also knew Lisa's the kind of person who'd fight. Dirty, say whatever she had to, lies, exaggerations, whatever it took to win her way. Meanwhile, I kept my distance. I didn't want her knowing I was watching her, but I also didn't want her to think she could get away with more. I installed a few hidden cameras around the house, just in case she tried to come back or make a move. I also hired a private investigator to dig into her recent activities, just to make sure I had everything covered. It was a lot to process, feeling betrayed, angry, betrayed again, then trying to hold it all together for Jake's sake. One day I overheard her on the phone with a friend, laughing about how she was going to teach me a lesson for exposing her. That's when it hit me hard. She thought she was untouchable. She thought she could just lie, manipulate, and walk away without consequence. That bitchy attitude, that I don't care facade, was her armor. But I wasn't going to let her control everything. I spent late nights poring over legal advice, making sure I was prepared for whatever she threw at me. Then there was the moment I realized I had to tell Jake the truth, in a way he could understand. I sat him down one afternoon, holding back my own tears, and explained that sometimes grown-up relationships can get complicated. I told him his mom made some mistakes and that it wasn't his fault. I promised him I'd always be there for him, that he could trust me, and that we'd get through this together. It was one of those moments where I felt like I was losing my innocence all over again, seeing my little boy's face, so innocent, while I was drowning in betrayal. By now, Lisa was trying to spin her version of events, acting like she was the victim. She'd call Jake, cry about how unfair everything was, and make herself out to be the wronged wife. That only made me more determined. I knew her well enough now to see through her lies. She's the type of woman who manipulates everyone around her, but I'd learned to spot her games. The final blow came when I received a court notice. Lisa was trying to claim that I was an unfit father, that I was emotionally unstable, trying to turn Jake against me. That was her last-ditch attempt to regain control. But I had the evidence, the witness statements, the private investigator's report, and everything else I needed to show I was a good father, the only real one Jake had ever known. Looking back, I realize I've changed a lot through this ordeal. I used to trust easily, believed in fairness and honesty. Now I know better. Betrayal can come from anyone, even those closest to you. I learned that sometimes you have to fight fiercely for your dignity, for your reputation, and above all, for your kids' future. I still feel a lot of pain inside, anger, disappointment, a lingering sadness, but I also feel relief. Relief that I finally see her for what she truly is, that I don't have to pretend anymore, and I'm finally starting to rebuild my life piece by piece. It's not perfect and I'm not fully healed, but I'm moving forward. And honestly, that's the best I can ask for right now. In the end, I managed to get through the storm. The court granted me primary custody of Jake, and Lisa's access was limited, mostly supervised, which she hated but couldn't argue with the evidence I had. I never thought I'd see the day. I'd have to fight so hard to protect my son from someone I thought was supposed to love him, but here we are. I've learned that trust is fragile and betrayal can cut deeper than I ever imagined. Living without her has been a rough adjustment. The house feels quieter, emptier. There's no more sneaky texts, no more lies, no more her bitchy attitude trying to dismiss everything. I've had to rebuild my sense of self from the ground up. I've focused on Jake, on work, and on forgiving myself for all the time I wasted believing her lies. That's the hardest part, accepting that I was blind, that I let her manipulate me for so long. What's left now is this strange mixture of relief and bitterness. I still get angry sometimes when I think about how she played me, how she lied and betrayed everything we once had. But I also realize that holding onto that anger doesn't do me any favors. I have to let go for Jake's sake, for my own. I've started going to therapy, talking through the pain, trying to understand how I missed all the red flags. It's a process, and some days are better than others. I've come to see this whole ordeal as a hard lesson, not just about her but about myself, about trusting my instincts, about recognizing manipulation, and about fighting for what's right, even when it's hard or uncomfortable. I've learned that sometimes the only way to win is to walk away, to reclaim your dignity, and to protect the people you love. That's what I did. Now I'm focusing on the future. I know there's still a lot of healing to do, and I won't pretend I'm completely over it, but I'm hopeful. I'm rebuilding my life from the ashes. My relationship with Jake has actually grown stronger because of all this chaos. I want him to see that even when life throws you the worst, you can come out the other side stronger. And I want him to know that adults aren't perfect, but the important thing is to own your mistakes and learn from them. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs earlier. I wish I hadn't been so blind to her manipulations, but I also know I did the best I could with what I had. And now, I'm finally free, free from lies, from betrayal, from a marriage that was never truly honest. I guess the biggest lesson I've learned is that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to truly find your strength. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm ready for whatever comes next. I've survived the worst, and I've come out the other side with a clearer mind and a stronger heart. That's all I can ask for. And honestly, I feel pretty damn proud of myself for that.